Okay.
where you had written. Let me look at it. I want to get it right here. Real estate is not a passive activity. Investing is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It makes me nuts when I hear people say, you know what, I want some passive income. I'm gonna go buy a duplex. I said, oh, you are? Okay. Who's who's gonna clean the toilets? Who's gonna turn the units? Well, I will. I'll do that on the weekends, man. My wife is cool. We want to build up some. She'll let me do it. She doesn't mind. She doesn't want me around anyway on the weekends. I'll go over there and tinker and do my thing and whatever. And so I would ask you, well, you might be generating income, but it certainly isn't passive.
No, that's not.
That's you there swinging a hammer, using the saw. You're very very active. So people think that that real estate thing that I just described as passive, it's not. It's not even close. So the only way to be a passive investor in real estate is to invest with a firm like ours. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of other firms out there that do what we do, but when you just write me a check, I go do my thing, right? I could do all the things that I just told you about in the Jacksonville deal, and then I return a whole bunch of money to you because I did a good job. That's passive investing. What did you do? All you had to do was write the check. You still went to your day job. You still did whatever it is you did with your family on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You had no commitment. So I always like to get people to kind of really make sure that they focus on what is passive versus active. They just think that they're going to buy this duplex and that's going to be mailbox money, but it's not going to be mailbox money. It just never is when they're that small.
Even with a good property manager, you're still involved. And
well, it's hard to afford a good property manager with smaller properties.
Absolutely.
I mean, it just is. How much time and effort? I always say, I used to have people come to me, hey, can you look at my property management company's not doing a very good job. My occupancy is whatever. People aren't paying their rent. And the first thing I ask them is, well, how much are you paying your property management company? Well, I'm paying them $500 a month. I don't know. I'm making up a number here. So I asked them, how much time and energy and resources do you think they can commit to your property for that whopping $500?
That's right.
Not very much. So you're getting what you pay for. That's
exactly
kind of the way it is. In our world, 250 units, the management fee is $10,000 a month. Guess what? They're going to put some time and attention on that. Now we happen to manage our own properties because we're pretty focused on how we do things. But now we have the ability to throw the right resources at it when the management fee is high enough that you can do this profitably. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It brings up another great point because you'll hear some people, again, I'm not going to say any names, but
Please.
they'll say, don't put your own property management in place until you get to this place, or start it right away. Start it right away. Learn your processes, implement your own. I think starting your own management right away, if you do not have operators experience or enough operators experience around you and the time to be hands-on, putting your own management in place in the beginning is a horrible idea. That's my position.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. That's how we've always done it. I tried a third-party manager for about 30 days. I got rid of them after 30 days.
Right.
But it's I had always once I figured out how lucrative this business could be, and I saw how some third-party management companies are not the best. My company originally grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we made money for our first 10 years of our existence.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no third-party management infrastructure in Cleveland because nobody invests in Cleveland from outside of Cleveland. So it's a total owner-operator town. So I kind of grew up that way.
Okay.
Because I could, there were a couple of third-party managers, but like I said, the only one I hired the last 30 days, and I said, this isn't working for me. So we moved on. Now in Florida, there's third-party managers on every door, on every corner. They're everywhere because so many people invest in Florida from outside. But we just simply continued to do what we do. Now, here's the thing: you have to be prepared that in the day of a life of Ken Gee, I spend more time than I wish I had to on some management activities. Now we've gone to the point where I have got some really top-notch people in our senior management team. I spend very, very little time on management. It's usually just checking in, answering a few questions, things like that. But there was a time when, I was trying to figure out how to get the units turned and
Yeah.
so on. So, over the last 25 years, I've developed systems and processes, and now it's a pretty well-oiled machine. But you're right. I mean, you have to ask yourself early on, what do you want to commit yourself to? Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to commit yourself to finding deals and underwriting, or do you want to commit yourself to trying to figure out how to evict this guy or gal who won't pay their rent, and
Right.
what should you do, and all that kind of stuff? It's a good, it's a decision that you have to make. It
It's
was
an
kind of made.
opportunity cost.
It is, yeah, it is. Yep.
And where you value your position in your
Mhm.
organization. Where do you have the most value? Where do you give the most value? And if you're at
Now,
the top, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I will tell you that I think I didn't mean to interrupt, but I will tell you that I think we are more successful because we manage our own stuff, because we're vertically integrated,
Mm-hmm.
because we've just learned so much along the way that it's hard to find third-party management companies that have been doing it for 25 years, who have been that focused on really fine-tuning their operations, and it gives us that visibility all the way to the ground. So that, remember, I talked about pivoting on your renovation plan and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yep.
If you've got somebody else below you, you might not have access to the information that you're like, oh man, I wish I would have known that,
Mm-hmm.
because I would have changed my plan. So we have a better chance at that. So it has served us very, very well. There are days that I wake up that I wish I wasn't the property management firm, but I think our investors have benefited enormously because of that.
Well, I would imagine, even though you're employing folks, you're saving money as opposed to paying 5 or 6% to an outside management team.
Well, I mean, we pay ourselves, right?
Oh,
We
right,
pay
right.
ourselves
Of course.
a fair wage
Yeah.
to do it. Where we save is our expertise.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing it so many times. When we go into a property to turn it around, I'll just give you an example. We have, it's called our 90-day turnaround plan. Remember the MASH movie?
Mm-hmm.
Where where the helicopters would show up, and then the nurses and all Alan Aldo would be there, and they'd all do triage, right? That's the first 30 days when you own the property. Then the second 30 days, we start to impose our will on the people. They understand that they actually have to pay rent, and we start to figure out who the bad guys are, and we start to move against them. And then by that third 30-day period, it's kind of our property now. It feels like our property. People appreciate the level of service they get. So here's what I'm trying to illustrate. I'm trying to illustrate that we know it's a 90-day turnaround plan. We know exactly what's going to happen in each phase. And so we can be really consistent and efficient about how we turn properties around, rather than risking that we hook up with a property management company who doesn't really have that much experience with turnarounds, right? You just got to be really careful. So I just wanted to point that out, but as a way that I think we've added tremendous value. And it's not uncommon for, if you think about a typical private equity firm that's not in real estate, say they go buy companies, they pride themselves, most of them do, on their ability to bring their expertise down to the company that they've acquired and adding value through that process. And we kind of do that same thing when we buy properties. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 1,000%. It's a business that, for me, it's a business or an aspect of the business that is consistently evolving, but there are processes that are continuous through that evolution. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. Yep.
And there, in fine tuning those things, as you've just described in your business, is where you really, because moving with ease is more important than making all the money.
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, understand, not meaning you're giving up money. It's just a better place to be. And I like the fact of how you broke it down, where you have all the information. So if you need to move laterally, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's extremely important in dealing with this. So
if you like the content that we've shared here, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.